can think of. You've got loads of ideas, John. You're building a Hadron Collider in your back garden. You know, you kitted out the Ghostbusters, for God's sake. You have NASA sat behind you.
But John doesn't appear to me to be the kind that does the bare minimum.
No.
John is the definition of maximum. You should rename yourself Max Power.
But it'd be interesting to know about, how much time you put into your own kind of just self-study of interest. Really.
Well, let's just start recording, which we are now.
So right, there we go.
So don't worry. So I'm going to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 dancey, and then we will literally just chew the goddamn fat. So just prepared for lots of random weirdness, okay? And we'll go in 5, 4. Hello, everyone. It's an E5 podcast again.
Sorry.
It's the usual yawners.
You got me half yawning.
Got him half yawning. I'm Paul Meenan. Thanks for tuning in. We don't really have a specific topic, so I've no even idea what the title is. We're just going to chew the fat on this one. Introduce yourself, my tag team partners.
I'm wide awake. It's David Watts, Sparky Ninja.
Hello, I'm JW.
Hey, it's JW. Who are you? Yeah, no, I'm only joking. That's getting really old, actually, isn't it? Right, lads, believe it or not, I think we have done like 50 podcasts now or so.
Really?
Which is quite incredible considering. Hang on, let me just check now. Check me. We started. Oh my God, we started our first podcast on the 27th of September. So we have done over 50. By the time we get to next September, at this rate, we'll have done far in excess of one a week.
I'm going to say that's
a lot.
That's close. Oh, my maths is rubbish.
It's late. It's really late when we're recording this, by the way. So expect our maths to be crap. But yeah, we have done a lot. I think we are doing 2 a week at the moment during this lockdown. But if this lockdown is going until August, then I think we just go back to one a week because I'd rather do, a quality chat rather than us just chewing the fat as we are today. But this is like a summary one, really. We're just recording what we normally chat about when we're not recording.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're kind of just talking or chilling or talking about podcasts, whatever. I think one of the things about podcasts, or one of the worst things, is if you commit or if you oblige yourself to record podcasts, because then you'll end up just creating any kind of noise. Thankfully, we always kind of have a subject, or we kind of have. Well, let's be honest, guys. I mean, if we actually put our heads together, we probably have a pile of things that we can actually create content on. That's because we've got so much going on right now. We've got stuff that we've been talking about even a few weeks ago, where we just launched a recent podcast where we looked at EV in the future. There's lots to do, and I think that's the important thing. As long as there's things to say, there's things to talk about, then great.
I still haven't recovered from that, the Future of EV podcast. That was the biggest brain melt I've ever had. And yet John Ward cruised it.
Let's not forget that we had a couple of hours talking afterwards where we started uncovering a lot of other things, which we also are going to start. Well, I've got to do lots of CPD on. I think you've got some experience with it.
I've got some digging to do for standards and various bits. The trouble is, and let's talk about that for a second. So it's fair to say we're planning to do some stuff that hopefully is original, fresh, and different. And I think, John, your channel will benefit from. Dave, your stuff will benefit from. This podcast will, I think, show the emergence of what we're doing and maybe our thought processes as to where we need to go, rather than, because I think the electrical industry works behind closed doors, a very secret squirrel, a JPEL club, for want of a better word. And I think us debating these standards openly and transparently is probably a good way of people understanding the journey we go on, and maybe the other secret squirrel clubs go on as well. The only difference is we're kind of trying to be as unbiased as we can, because we don't really get paid to do any of this. This is all us researching for the sake of research to try and improve our own knowledge and hence others. But yeah, dudes, we've 50 podcast. We've been on Electrium's podcast. I just recorded one with Schneider. Dave, you've got some stuff to do with Schneider as well on their podcasts. I've been on Hit the Lights podcast, other podcasts. And I've also got a side podcast I'm doing as well, which is a movie.
Which I'm actually liking, by the way.
Are you really?
I've watched two of them now. I watched the rest of the second one earlier on.
Yeah,
One
John.
on scores. It's cool.
I'm doing a horror movie related one with some nutty northerners that I met at a convention, and it's different. It's me not talking about pipes and wires, but yeah, it's called Outlaws of
But
Horror.
that's good though. We actually were going to talk about this at Christmas time. We were going to talk with you five guys about what we kind of do and family or outside of work and stuff. But it's good to kind of have other interests. I mean, you say a lot that you've said, I think, when the coronavirus kind of ends, the first thing you're going to do is go to the cinema and get some sleep or
chill.
Yeah, it's good to have those other interests.
Well, this has already taught me that I have to accept the fact I'm Tom Nargi's dad, because everybody's appointed me on social media as Tom Nargi's father. I don't exactly know how that came about, other than the fact that obviously there's lots of snow on the mountain, and the beard is coming back. Although I don't know whether I'm going to take the beard off, or I don't know. I just don't know. That's about as confused as I'm getting during this lockdown, because work is mental, mate. You know that, John. You know that. I am busier than I have ever been, even before the lockdown, because I'm sat at the desk doing stuff.
The point is, I mean, your workload hasn't slowed down because it's an essential service, but obviously your method has changed. And now that everyone works from home, or the majority do, everything is much more immediate, and you haven't got those little gaps. And so the workload is just heavy.
I had to go to a site today, and I spent most of the day in London at a station for what was essential. I'm not going to mention it on this podcast.
Yeah.
And I got back, and there's the email box sitting in front of me, and I'm like, oh, great. So tomorrow's going to be an even longer day, probably sat in front of the computer screen and on the phone and everything else. But of the podcast, John, you've been in a few of us now. I'm going to ask you openly, what do you think of it? Do you think we're just this mad rabble of lunatics, or have you enjoyed any, and which ones have you enjoyed?
Yeah, I think there's it's not necessarily a total rabble. There's obviously a lot of stuff in there, and I think it's nice to see the number of people that actually do listen to these in total, because it is a lot of people.
That's quite scary, isn't it? The numbers are scary, because I mean, straight away on the app now, I'm just looking now. Just on the audio side, there's 27,300. But I checked this about 2 weeks ago, and we had around the 50,000 mark if you added the YouTube stuff. But I haven't added the YouTube for the last 3 or 4 episodes. So you can probably add another. So we're probably at around about 55,000 listens.
Yeah. And that's just in September, or when it started. So
that's not bad, actually. When you think about it.
We're seeing a lot of people say on LinkedIn, for example, how valuable they're finding the podcast specifically. Just listening, and I mean, some guys have said I'm talking to the car, or they're talking to the phone, trying to interact and engage, because it's a lot of them. I mean, sometimes we have a couple of podcasts where it's just listen and that's it, but a lot are very engaging.
Hang on a minute, let's have a bit of silence so they can talk back. Yeah, it's a valid point. Now.
Yeah, it's very,
Mark,
very
Steve,
valid.
Alan, Lee, Adrian,
Tom.
So we're trying to engage here, Tom. Yeah, everybody. I mean, I personally, I have found it quite difficult. I found it's enhanced it's developing my competence on the whole editing and using the media and upload. I mean, to edit the file and upload it on MP3 takes me about 10 minutes. The video will take 2 to 3 hours, just because video is a different beast. And I mean, people can see us now anyway, because the one thing I've loved about these is so many people have taken the time to write emails to our info@E5 group account and give us feedback. Some people have trolled us, which hello trolls, but some people have written some really humbling, lovely, sweet. I mean, the bullying one we did, the alcoholism one and the depression one, we did that because everyone who knows me knows I'm very open book. And I would rather my engagement with somebody is, this is who I am, this is me. I'm emotional, I'm passionate, I care, I'm a Virgo. And if you like me, great. If you don't like me, then... But I'd rather people understand the mindset and why I think and who I am and why I do what I do. because then I can have a more honest relationship, a more respectful relationship, a more passionate relationship. That sounds a bit weird, but you know what I mean. And I've just been blown away by some of the feedback. So everyone who has messaged us, thank you so much. We've read a lot of them. We've still got 100 emails to read, but thank you very, very much for all the feedback, because it has made the ball ache of doing this worthwhile.
I had the same when I was doing, when I'm still doing Sparky Ninja, when I did like the 18th edition and all the 2396 stuff. I had a message, I had messages just today about the value of that and how rewarding it is and how it's helping them learn and everything. And you do kind of feed off of that a little bit. It keeps you motivated. It keeps you going. Now, there are some comments that you get that you just kind of immediately know to ignore or delete or remove. There are, some negatives to doing this. I'm sure John has a regular quantity of straight to the ignore button.
Yeah, the videos attract because there's a lot of them and they get a lot of views. There's a lot of comments, and to be fair, most of the comments are okay, but there are, of course, that certain percentage of people who basically just get ignored because they're just doing it there to basically annoy people.
It does kind of. It does, because you have to. This is where I've got to. I've got to the point where I don't sit and I don't check comments straight away. I'll let them build and then I'll go and visit them and I'll just go through them. So often when people message me, I might not respond to them for a couple of days. I'd like to respond instantly. If I hear an alert, I'll go and check, but I can't have the alerts on because there are so many. But then if I go and I check and it's just negative, that's just a waste of time. I'd rather go to when there's a few and I can then just delete the nonsense and then answer to the actual ones who want proper engagement.
In fairness, I didn't realise, over on Facebook, that on the E5 Facebook page, people could direct message that. So I went in there about 3 months ago and I was answering messages from 9 months. I didn't even know.
I had the same. I had
you
the same
could message.
It took me till recently where I found out that Sparky Ninja as a page has a visitors messages section.
Oh.
That wasn't visible for me until I found a button that says show, and there was dozens of messages, and some of them were recent, but some were a year or so old.
John, you had a weird message on one of your videos recently, didn't you?
That cryptic thing about caustic something. So yeah, I don't know what that was.
It was a drunk message, surely.
Yeah, it was some kind of. The person it was from wasn't. The actual name was in either Chinese or some other sort of character. So it looked like something that they'd kind of written and partially translated or something. I've got no idea.
It was the bloke who made the orange SPD that you pulled apart in China getting his revenge.
But it was one of those comments that you just read it and think, you what? And then you read it again and you think, no, there's just nothing there.
You do get it though. You get some people do struggle to write correctly, especially if they're not, maybe if English isn't their first language. And so some messages you'll get where you know that they're actually trying to say something, but you've got to read it a few times to actually understand. But then in your case, you probably tried to read it a few times and you realise, no, it's still nonsense.
Yeah, you just didn't way forward.
We've been getting recently, I think it's messages on Instagram from I think it's an 11 or 12-year-old asking electrical questions. And I genuinely don't respond to it because I think it's a piss take account. I think it's someone just taking the mick or trying to push a button and say, will these guys give advice? Because anyone who's under the age of 18, well, let's realistically 21, to be honest with you, you shouldn't be doing any electrical work unless you're supervised. And under the age of 18, you shouldn't be touching a damn thing, as far as I'm concerned, unless you've been fortunate to get an apprenticeship and you're completely supervised. I'm blown away. But I've actually adopted Tom's view on this because we did some Instagram lives where people were just being horrible to us on Instagram Live, and we sat on Instagram Live going, "Screw you." But yeah, I said to Tom, "Why don't you block half these bell ends?" And he was just like, you get a thick skin, but it does affect. And this is why now I'm going to block Time Thieves. So I can't be asked with people who want to waste my time with trivial stuff.
Yeah.
When we get so many messages of positivity.
I got to the point where I have to. I mean, I've got so much. I'm basically trying to do too much because obviously I'm trying to earn a living for the family. I've got the YouTube. I've got E5, which I'm also, I'm always trying to help as much as I can with E5. Got Discord. I'm trying to do the website. I'm trying to create content. I'm also trying to do coding. I'm trying to do some other things. just take on too much. And so when it comes to actually giving people time, you have to make sure that it's valuable time. And if people always try to suck off your positivity and just always give you a negative or always question what you do and never give you value back or never give you any kind of proper proper support, then
Engagement. Yeah, I know.
Just turn off, just disconnect.
Sometimes it's why I always say it's nice to be nice, but sometimes you just need that engagement to let you know that what you're doing is good and well thought of. And even if sometimes it's nice to give the constructive feedback, not that, in my opinion, like the world is, there are people out there who go, well, in my opinion, well, yeah, but your opinion only matters to you, not the rest of the world, and it may not also be right or factual or
exactly.
without seeing the bigger picture.
In my opinion, is exactly that. It doesn't mean that the person who, if you've got an opinion against someone else, doesn't mean you having an opinion makes them right or wrong in the first instance.
I have to say, when I used to sit in design review meetings, if a designer would sit there and go, well, in my opinion, I would sarcastically go, oh, in your opinion, okay, right, everyone stop the meeting, let's all go in your opinion, because your opinion is, okay, come on, carry on talking. Okay, so it's going to cost us how many millions? And that's in your opinion with no facts or evidence. Right, okay, yeah, your opinion means a lot then. And you just think to yourself, do you know what? Sometimes it's about the opinions people have are more about their own arrogance, their own lack of self-esteem, and their own jealousy or envy.
Yeah,
I find
a lot of that last one, because they just, whatever you say, they want to say something that is not in the same direction, whether it be completely polar opposite to it or just slightly skew it off.
And that's fine if they want to do that.
Yeah, but they don't offer any support or information with it. It's just an attempt to kind of sway it. And that's
upset John so much he's decided to walk away.
He's just like, yeah, but that's the point. I mean, I found that he's back.
Hang on a second, stop everything. John, show me your T-shirt. Show me your T-shirt.
That's all right, isn't it?
I'm wearing a Star Wars rip-off. Pew pew.
Oh.
Pew, 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 pew.
That's pretty good, actually. Is that a Starfleet one?
Yeah.
Okay. You see, John Moore's got a decent T-shirt collection.
I have the exact same shirt.
Do you really?
I think I do.
I have. See, John, would you wear a Star Wars T-shirt? Even a stupid one
He's
like
a Trekkie. I think John's a Trekkie.
Maybe, yeah. I've never seen Star Wars anyway, so fine.
John, there are 9 movies of amazing entertainment for you. Just pretend that you've had too much to drink when you watch episodes 1 to 3. It really gets good from episode 4 onwards. 1 to 3 was like someone had a weird acid trip using too much CGI. Is that fair to say, Dave?
I could say acid trip also for the last one, to be honest. The first 10 minutes of that were absolutely insane. I only watched it recently.
What, the last the Rise of Skywalker one?
Yeah, it was
just awesome. I've got it on iTunes.
Yeah, it was
You're just one of them people that doesn't like the word star in anything other than one. So I'm a fan of Stargate. John, are you a fan of Stargate? Please tell me you've watched Stargate.
Yes, I have seen that, and yes, that's fine.
See, a man of class and taste as well as intelligence. Yes, I love Stargate.
Stargate's not in the stars, though, is it?
Well, technically traveling between the stars, between two.
But isn't it all like one? Isn't it all one gate to the next?
No, because they go into space, because there's only so much spanking of the buttons and the dialing that you can do before you go, hang on a minute, this is 10 seasons worth of just going from planet to planet, when in actual fact, one episode you're in the car park next door, the next minute you're in the desert down the road, the next minute you're in the Las Vegas jungly bits. It wore out, but the last seasons, this is about building a multi-story arc, isn't it, across various TV shows. This isn't electrical now. We've just gone off on one. Sorry, but what the hell? But yeah, Stargate is good in its own merits. They even, I believe, they take the mickey out of like Babylon 5 and other stuff in one episode. They do mock the Star Trek, I think, and Babylon 5 in one episode. So they're able to take the mickey out of themselves. But I love the
first few seasons. I didn't watch the
you were too busy developing content, no doubt.
This is a long time ago. There was.
Yeah, but there's always time for Star Trek. There's always time for Stargate. John, have you watched What We Leave Behind? The Star Trek of course, you're not a Deep Space Nine fan, but there's a beautiful documentary on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and the fans paid to restore like 40 minutes of footage. and put it in full like 4K HD widescreen because it was filmed in widescreen. Wow, that is an
I
amazing.
think I've seen that. I haven't seen it in 4K because I don't have a 4K thing to see it on, but I think I've seen that.
You've got a TV though, and you'll show it in HD, no doubt. You do? Do you have a HD TV?
Yeah.
One you haven't taken apart?
Yeah.
Very good. Just checking. Just checking. I'm just wondering if there's a video. So, John, what videos have you got coming up then for us to our? Can you preview anything that you're working on at the moment, or is it all top secret?
Well, it's not secret really. There's a list actually, which
I bet you're all organised and everything.
Yeah, you are organised, didn't you?
I need to
John's
learn
got a
some
list.
YouTube stuff off of John.
We need to
'cause I'm
learn.
rubbish.
John, teach us.
Well, the trouble with the list is that you take one thing off and then 6 things get added on, you see, so it never actually gets any shorter. It just
Well,
goes-
in all fairness, hopefully
Oh.
we've contributed to some of that list because that's what we're here for, to give you random ideas that would work. But in all fairness, we do also chuck
Maybe he's
you
wishing
random
we'd
objects.
maybe he's wishing we'd go away then. Maybe that's the problem.
Look, John, there you go. There's a
Content.
CT ready for you to go in
Yeah.
a video. I want you wiring this bad boy up and doing stuff with it.
Do you have
I've got
do you have
like 10 boxes of stuff which people have sent
10 boxes?
in,
Wow.
which I haven't even. I mean, I've looked in them, but obviously I haven't actually made a video about it. So anybody who sent stuff in and hasn't seen it, yeah, it is going to get done. It's just a big pile of stuff that needs dealing with. So
This
Do
is
you have
the
like a video
trouble.
box?
Yeah, this is the trouble when you're mates and you do YouTube stuff. You tend to find weird stuff that your other mate who specialises in that will benefit from. Henceforth, the repository of AFDD sits with John because of his wonderful rig, and the time you put into your videos, John, is so admirable. It's mind blowing because you spend most week. I actually feel embarrassed ringing him up because I know sometimes he'll be there pottering away in his shed, doing stuff, melting stuff, setting fire to stuff, and I love watching the videos of the stuff that I've given him happen. It's great. My actual boss at work watched your one of the intumescent pad, which was brilliant. The way it all swelled up and
yeah, that little
that trunk. Who would have thought that little trunking barrier? Because when I saw that, I thought this is a load of rubbish. And then John was like, no, swells up everywhere,
it's like
straight
that
into next
little
door's
thing.
garden.
Yeah.
Are they talking
It's
to
one of
you?
those things, though. I mean, I've explained that when I've delivered the regulations course. I've explained that many times because obviously, the regulation about having space remaining in your wiring system. I think it's 710 millimeter square remaining air gap needs to be then filled or replaced with intumescent material.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Just let's assume I'm right.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Unless John tells you otherwise.
But with that video, you could just say, "Oh, look, there's a video there," and you can actually see it swell. You can actually see it swell.
And I think this is one of the things as well, is today on the news, there was a brilliant, it was a passing comment. And it was about, I'll tell you what it was. I think it was Robert Halfon, he's an MP, but he said about kids and school. And he made a passing comment and he said, I don't know why all the curriculum isn't being broadcast on TV channels. Why are we not recording all the lessons? We've got the digital platforms to broadcast the national curriculum on multi-channels so that children can engage as and when they want to nationally.
Well, we have BBC, CBBS, and CBBC. We have the dedicated channels that can easily broadcast the curriculum.
No, but
curriculum,
digital
but
channels
it's
are easy
just
to start up. They
Yeah,
just
it
switch
is.
them
But I
on
mean, the actual infrastructure is there. They just haven't done it.
But
they
it was
did do. I
interesting
mean,
that the minister
four-
is asking the questions because if he's asking the questions, it's fairly evident that that option will come into place. So if you have a child who's off ill, if they're able to sit in a bed and with a TV on, because a lot of kids have TVs in their rooms now, they can still watch their curriculum.
There's lots of websites that have kind of taken over that need. And I agree, though. I agree there should be a broadcast curriculum so everything is equal and level. But, there's like Carol Vorderman's got a maths website. There's
I
something
like
called,
Carol Vorderman. She's lovely.
if I'm walking behind her, maybe. There's Mathletics. So this Mathletics thing is where you log in and you do maths at a time frame, and then there's like a leader scoreboard kind of thing. They've got all these websites for kids, and so a lot of the teachers. I mean,
Well, hang on. Carol Vorderman's doing stuff for kids.
She's got a website. She's got a maths website, and there's some stuff, some home study stuff. Yeah,
Not
that's
for teenagers then, no.
I haven't
Very
looked at it
dangerous if
because
it was.
the school, my boy's school, didn't go to that. They went to something called Mathletics and a couple of others. But they basically gave us 2 or 3 A4 pieces of paper with loads of URLs, YouTube videos, websites to take over that. And a couple of them do log in with an account that the school created, so the school can monitor. And so the school put on the Twitter account last week that my boy, my eldest, he's second in the whole school with the score for maths. So he's currently second, and that's it. So they're relying on third-party training and study to do that. Really. So I've got, as I say, I've got 4 boys. So we have the youngest who's not at school yet, but he's loving the fact all the brothers are home. The third youngest, sorry, the next one up. I lose track of how old they are. He's working on his words right now. Then second eldest, he just wants to play Fortnite all the freaking time, so he's not concentrating enough. And then the eldest, he's actually quite academic. So they're very level. They're varied levels. Yeah. And the school just gave the same pack for all. So one parent will have the pack for one child, and we've got the same one pack, but multiplied by 3 of different levels, which means the homeschooling is very, very hard to adjust. But so thankfully Bella's coping very, very well. I helped her out at first just to get the boys onto a routine, and she's doing very, very well with it, which has given me the ability to get on with my stuff. But no, I agree.
Your message is awesome.
There should be some support or curriculum on the waves.
So, John, just going back to, because obviously I'm not in school or I don't have kids to educate on that curriculum. Have you, a couple of questions for both of you actually. Have you ever thought about your content, or when you're doing this, could be an easy answer, whether or not when you're developing it, do you ever think of applying it in line with any curriculum or formal training? Yes or no?
I'd have to say no, because I mean, when I started doing it, it wasn't really aimed at anything at all. It sort of just ended up being useful to a lot of people. That wasn't actually the plan from the start.
Well, what was the plan from the start?
Well, there wasn't really a plan at all. Yeah, there wasn't actually a plan of any kind, really. It was just to put some videos up and see what would happen. And now here we are years later, and look what's happened. So
and you've got a silver button.
It sort of evolved into it. So
the scale ruler of shame. No, I didn't get this from YouTube actually. Dave, what about you?
Well, I mean, some of my training is a curriculum.
It is, actually,
in the sense, it's mapped to that, but I try to improve it. So it's a bit different. But I am trying right now to think about more of the simpler, smaller content, because I get questions and I'm answering the same questions all the time. I'm answering because there are a lot of people right now who have been sent home from college and they've been sent information, do this, do that, but they're finding that the teachers aren't at the end of the phone, or they're not communicating well enough, and they're finding this annoying guy on the YouTube who is more, I don't know, maybe he's easier to understand, so they're contacting me. But I'm answering the same questions, and I've seen a couple of questions in the past 2 weeks that were exactly the same questions from different colleges, so they're all like, it's struggling. And so I've decided to kind of, over the next couple of weeks, is do a couple of videos here and there on just answer. I did one today on the just transposition of the volt drop formula.
I saw that.
Yeah, well, a guy had a question on volt drop, and he had the value of volt drop as 6.6 volts, I think it was. Mm-hmm. He had 6.6 volts, a 1.5 flat profile cable, and the power was, I think, 1300 watts or so. Mm-hmm. So obviously you had to do IB to calculate P over V for amps to get the IB for the volt drop formula, which was 6 amps. And then you had to transpose the formula to work out what the length was, which calculated to 38 meters. So it's just 2-part formula. One, and the main question was, how do I transpose this? And I thought, well, I've had that a couple of times, so I'll just throw it on a YouTube video, a little 9-minuter.
Yeah, things like that. I mean, I get questions from various people, not just on the comments, but people tend to email stuff as well. And a lot of the questions, you think, well, isn't this like some really basic, obvious thing that you should know from day one? But of course, they don't know it for whatever reason, whether it's their own fault or someone else's fault or whatever. But there's a comment on YouTube here, which was put up earlier today, and someone's put, it says, this was about a circuit with resistance in it, and they've put, why does the largest part of the voltage appear across the largest resistance? And it's like, well, that's just how circuits work, because yeah.
Mm.
But they're asking this because they don't know. Now I don't
Mm.
know who this person is or what their background is, but they're still asking it. So yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, John. That was me earlier on.
Yeah, but I mean,
No, it wasn't me actually. I wouldn't ask that sort of question. For me, I actually, if you don't mind me bigging you up, I think you two are the best YouTube educators via direct and indirect means, if that makes sense. So even the random stuff that John you do, your wit and humour that you infuse into it, because it is deliberate. I know you. You do infuse sarcastic wit and humour into your videos to kind of emphasise some points on how stupid certain things are and products, and to ask people indirectly to have some common sense. Dave, yours, you can follow a curriculum, you can follow a thought piece, a pattern, a question. And I think of the YouTube community, if there is such a thing as a YouTube community, although everybody's individual, so I don't know where this community term comes from, but I think you two are the best. If I talk about other YouTubers, I think David Savory is just this mad scientist, genius, witty, Blackadder type-esque electrician with just no filter, which I love. Like the Jordans of Artisan, just a normal jobbing spark, very polite, very humble, open and transparent, asking his followers. It's such a difference, even like the Tom Nargi, he does all this fancy editing and 8 minutes later and all that random film. It's almost Tom's stuff is almost Hollywood-esque, whereas John, you just sit in front
of time.
It does take a lot of time. I desperately want John to just play a few chords on that organ and just go, there you go. That's me. In fact, your organ isn't there, is it, John? No, it's there behind you.
Yeah, it's behind us, yeah.
Could I challenge you to play your organ now?
Well, unfortunately not, because it needs to be repaired. Well, it needs some maintenance, shall we say.
Right, so John Ward will be on a podcast in the future, playing a few bars of Merry Christmas or something when somebody eventually gets around to his house, but it won't be soon because we're in lockdown and nobody's going anywhere at the moment. But yeah, I genuinely think your stuff is the best I watch. I'm actually, weirdly enough, I'm actually booking annual leave in lockdown so that one, I can get out into the garden more, and two, Dave, you know this, I've got some videos I want to film. So I've got the information, I've got all the stuff done. I need to film as many videos. So I'm actually going to book a week off just to film some videos and develop that emergency lighting stuff, give it a real update, and try and produce a BS5266 and an EN1838 video. That's if I don't fall into a coma reading the latest standards and developing that material.
The problem with that, there's always standards to read, so you need to apply a filter or whatever, because you've never read all of the standards now.
I think you can. I mean, you read one, and then by the time you've read it, you've found about 50 others which you need to go and read as well. So it's like,
well, we're 5266. It's always 5266 EN1830. So that's the baseline standard, then the system standard, and then you've got the product standard 60942-2-22, which is a product standard for emergency luminaires, and it just gets more soul destroying. But actually, the product standard I found was the most informative, because that's the one that then tells you about the color of the LED and what you should do and what you should look for in emergency light fitting. And I found it interesting the first time I read it, but then I realized I was the only person who did.
Well, I've often read documents and thought that's interesting, then realized there's no one actually to share that information with. That's all.
Yeah, and in all fairness, and then we've all found each other.
Yeah,
and realised we're all just as sad as each other. But hopefully the public benefits from that applied engineering logic and that inquisitive mindset. For me, it's always about the inquisitiveness of the mind. But going back to my original point, podcast-wise, do you have a favourite episode? Let's put this. What is your favourite episode and your worst episode from memory?
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be worse because it was bad and I sucked, but you can say that. For me, I would say the hardest or the worst episode was depression, because it was dark.
That's probably the one I don't like the most. Not necessarily because of that, but because I really wanted to be on that one.
Well, we can do it again. We can do
We
another
will
one.
do it again sometime. But I listened to that and I thought I had so much I could have said on this one
Yeah,
as well.
we kind of,
You
John,
know,
we just said what we're going to talk about, and then it was let's talk about depression. And we just went for it.
yeah.
The bullying one
Who
as
was on?
well.
Who was it? Was it you and Ryan? Was it that
It
one?
was me and no, me and Ryan did
Was it?
bullying,
Was it Dan?
and me and Dan did the depression one. But me and Ryan did one on bullying before, and we never released it because it was so dark. That one we could never release, and I think we've still got it on YouTube as a hidden video, but it was too dark. It was just too dark to ever release. To be honest with you.
No, I'm just
Um,
looking at the page. Crikey, we've done so many.
Yeah, I know. And for me, I think what was my favourite? I'm going to say technically the last one, the EV expanded debate. Um, but I think if I had to pick my absolute favourite, I think it's probably number one. Five Guys Have a Go, because we winged it, and if it weren't for John having that backup recording thing, but apologies for the audio again, I like that. I mean, I know Paul Skirm hasn't done much, but we know why Paul Skirm hasn't done much, and I'm sure Paul will do more in the next.
Just to update people listening, he's not disappeared. He's actually got the gear. He's done some recording. He's on the way.
He's on the way. He's growing
the
his
way.
knowledge and his confidence in it, and
He
we are
actually did
seeing
very well
it.
though. He sent a video to us last week, and we were blown away.
He
did.
did.
What was it? He had 3 phase, and he was showing a sine wave with 3 phases. The first thing Paul Skirm
Third
shows
harmonic.
us an example of was third harmonics. And I'm like, wow.
So, John, just prepare yourself, okay? Paul Skirm is going to try and steal your crown. Or luckily he won't, because nobody will understand him because he's Welsh. But he did send us a video of him, and I'm telling you now, like, it was like on a Friday night. I've just sent you something. Just have a quick look. So I downloaded it. It was in a weird file format, and I played it, and it's him sat in the screen with a three-phase supply, and he's talking about how third harmonics are introduced onto it and what it looks like. And I'm like, that's your first video? That's your first? Imagine what your 50th or your 100th is going to be. So yeah, but Mr. Skirm, we're going to do one on CE marking, product compliance, because again, there's one of the things. There is a standard.
That's going to be a series, must be surely.
So, funnily enough, you say that, because if I can read, which I can't without my glasses, PD, published document IEC, technical report 62350, because I've actually got it stuck on the wall here, has a general diagram which shows contribution of the availability of protective measure. And it starts with product standard, design and manufacturing, the overall compliance, the climatic environment, electromagnetic environment, and then it talks about availability of the protective device, periodical checking the device, installation conditions again, and that all adds up to the availability of whatever the protective measure you have, which I love.
Oh, and you guys were going to do pollution categories as well. We've discussed that a few times, haven't we?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
You and Mr. Scum have often brought that up, and I thought I don't think we really talk about that ever.
Yes, pollution category 2 and 3.
About one of those things that just floats about in the background and is never really covered in any way anywhere.
And there's 2 different types as well. So one thing I've learned from doing my CE stuff, there's a pollution degree, which is for breakers, but there's also a pollution category for the equipment under CE marking. And I only found that out recently when I had to do a CE audit, and I had to lean on Mr. Skirm to actually help me understand the wealth of that comes under the CE. But it's weird. If somebody
pretty much the best way to describe it sometimes is
well, I started that way, but then I read very sensibly. I got a highlighter pen and I downloaded the machinery directive and the LV directive. And in the machinery directive, it clearly states you will have adequate lighting. There will be barriers. There'll be no parts that can entrap you. And then immediately when you're looking at a machine, you just go, well, I can stick my finger in that, so that's non-compliant. And sometimes there's some real common sense that just needs to be applied to, interpretation of the directives. There is a very good piece of software out there, though, that can help you with it. Sorry.
Yeah, the machinery directive is certainly a fairly extensive document, isn't it? Something I have actually looked at a number of times.
So there is actually something called compliance risk software. If anyone has ever got any issues with machinery, I've used it and it's really good. And basically what it is, it's almost like a reverse engineering compliance declaration check sheet using all of the clauses. You don't have to write it all out. You'll just make an assessment, tick the box. Where there is any form of risk, there's a risk assessment. So at the end of it, you can then come up with an applied engineering judgment logic of risk against the equipment. Is it hazardous? Do you need to intervene? Do you need to change? I've used it once. It's a fantastic piece of software, to be honest with you. But yeah, so I think my favourite episode's the first, even though the audio's crap. I think the hardest was bullying and depression. What's yours? What do you think for you guys?
Well, I'm just looking at I'm just looking at all the tiles of all the different ones. Well, the ones that I've been on, I enjoyed having Adrian talk about training. Lee bringing us a bit of information about building regulations was great.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed talking about that one where you and I talked to Michael about Instagram, and we got our phones out and we were just trying to update it. I found that quite fun.
Yep.
But the other thing about the ones I was on, I actually really think I liked the one Richard and Louise, where they took the microphone and did one on isolation.
They took, yeah, I was supposed to be on that and I couldn't make it, but they did it anyway. God, love them.
That was pretty good.
That was hard. Do you know what? I regret not releasing the video footage for that, because I've got the original video file, and that's quite harrowing to watch. Louise.
Yeah, I think it's very important that people do try to watch her when she speaks about that story.
Yeah, maybe.
And the other one probably be your. Well, it wasn't a podcast actually, was it? No, your conversation couch with Tom.
That was a fascinating one to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have enjoyed doing the conversation couch stuff. It's quite fun because my dog seems to love getting involved, and it's a lovely couch. John sat on it. It's a comfy old couch. It's got some nice covers and pillows that my missus gets from IKEA. So she's always wondering when I'm going to do another one. But I live out of the way, so it's not exactly you're going to. Although I have invited like Mike Andrews and stuff to come and sit on the couch, but I don't think he'll be doing that anytime soon.
The SPD ones.
Yeah.
There's 3 of them now?
Yes. Soon to be hopefully 4.
Yeah.
Maybe 5.
That's the thing. I don't think I'm through the journey of learning about SPDs.
Nope, I know.
So I see them and I'm like, I need to know more. So they're great, but I want to do more.
So I think we're going to get somebody else from Dane in, and I think we are going to cover the Type 1 in a bit more specific, a little bit more on that, and then also we are going to do some BSEN 62305 lightning protection. Maybe ask some simple questions from an electrical installer, how it impacts me if I was, let's say I'm doing a railway station or a big storage unit like Amazon. But then for John's perspective, if John goes to a large mansion that for some weird reason they've got, a antenna on the roof and it's not an aerial, and they've got a full lightning protection system to protect the building, what John needs to do as an electrical installer. So... And also the industry body behind that, an industry body called Atlas. So I think we're going to get the chairman of Atlas in to talk about that. I have to say I've really enjoyed getting the manufacturers in. Been a personal highlight for me, because you're right, the Kirsty one, the first one was dynamite. The second one was even better, and I think when Dane came in to give their view, it just added to that body of debate and understanding and questions to ask, and I think I do agree, but I think we need to. I'm hoping we can maybe, and this will probably be the first time they hear it. Hopefully I'll message them tomorrow. If we can get Kirsty and Dane onto one, and we can have a real debate and talk about maybe just for an hour the whole to fuse or not to fuse, because I know John's still traumatized by the abuse we've thrown his way. No, I'm only joking, John. You know I love you. Yeah, but I think there's more to do there, and a bit of lightning protection bolted on. Then I'm hoping people will be able to look back and listen. But I've loved having the manufacturers, and the Surge one has been my favourite going forward. I think we need to maybe do some more on ARC. I think we need to get Eaton in. I think we need to get Schneider definitely to talk about AFDDs. We'll get some of the manufacturers to talk about AFDD from their perspective, not salesy, because we don't do salesy stuff here, but just the technical intent, the application for the practical installer. And also, if anyone else is listening, they can come on.
Do we know? We know that Schneider obviously have got their AFTD coming out.
Yes.
Later this year. Is that correct? It's not out yet, is it?
I think Richard Emery has one.
Is it out now?
I think Richard Emery may have one. He'll text me the minute he hears this and tell me otherwise. But Richard Emery did a cracking job with Louise. I think I've got another podcast of his parked somewhere actually at the moment. I need to have a chat with him about confined spaces. Need to get that sorted out. I think I need to edit a few.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I know. I just literally just remembered. No, it's not out. No,
I've listened to it. So
yeah, I know. I think it's stuck in
must be in the
limbo.
system.
I think it needs re-editing. I think there's some bits that just need to be clicked from it before we release it, and I've just not got round to it. But yeah, so Richard Emery has been an awesome guest host. Well, John. There we go. He's going to throw me under the bus now. He's going to say they're all crap.
Yeah, I mean the surge protection things are certainly it's another one of those areas where the basic bits are quite simple, or the concepts, but then of course when you look into it, then there's all this other stuff that goes behind it, and then there's more stuff behind that, and then when you get different types of them and from different manufacturers, they've all got their own little ways of doing things. So
that's the bit that gets me, the interpretation. And and then the expectation goes in different directions.
The surge protection one, where they was basically saying that effectively some surge protection devices, especially the Type 2s we're looking at, some effectively you can rely on the overcurrent protective device of the DNO, and some you have to provide your own local fusing, and that's confused people because a lot of people see the SPD as a device that shouldn't have a double standard, should have a common standard of I either protect it from an MCB or I don't. And I think that's kind of one of the things I think that's confusing.
Well, from what that actually just refreshed myself on it from what I remember. they interpreted the regulation differently. In that, because Robin from Dane actually just said, we need that overcurrent protection if there's likely to be a failure of continuity of service. I think the first thing he said was about the rupturing capacity of a 1361 and BS80A. Realistically, in comparison to the SPD, which was a passive device that that fails in open circuit.
Weirdly enough, Regulation 534451, SPD shall be protected against an overcurrent with respect to short circuit currents. This protection may be internal and or external to the SPD according to the manufacturer instructions. That one line allows both.
That's the point, because he's stressing that it actually fails open circuit, so it's not going to be a short circuit. Well, they do. That's the thing. If it does allow both, then which way do we conclude?
From what I've seen of them, it all depends on how it's made and the amount of energy it's designed to handle, and what happens when it does fail, and all various other factors, which obviously, from an outside view, you're not going to have.
No.
So it really comes down to, if the manufacturer says it does need a certain thing, then that's what you fit in. So
we also probably need to do a podcast on Amendment 1 and the mistakes in it. Are we allowed to talk about that? Yeah, we're not allowed to talk about that.
I've been tempted to do a video, but I thought I'd better not.
Well, at least one mistake is out anyway, because the formula in it on the annex has been copied. I think it's put in the new
fourth edition of the code.
Yeah, that version 4.
Yeah, so I heard it has. I've not seen it.
So that's definitely.
So I think it's 722.1 in Amendment 1 is the incorrect equation.
The three-phase one, isn't it?
Yeah, and the 7224 is also an incorrect reg number. There's a few mistakes that we've found. God love them.
They're just maintaining their standard. It's fine.
Of rushing stuff out the door and not doing correct QA.
Publishing something with errors.
Yeah, the equation there's a bit missing at the end. So one of the actual, I think it's like L2, something is missing at the end of it. So if you do it as written, it makes absolutely no sense at all. So
which is a big problem.
Yeah.
As you said, maintaining continuity of standards. Sadly. So come on, John, what's your favourites or your least liked?
Well, I think in terms of favourites, it's going to be things like the surge protection one, because it's one of these where it sort of opens the door to all kinds of other stuff, which then you can go and look at.
It has opened a door, and that's the point. There's no full stop on that subject still with me.
And it's still open, isn't it? I mean, there's still more and more stuff going in there. Yeah. So
do you know why? I think it opens the door to the what if. The what if there's a strike or a stroke. how does my electricity react? How is their mutual interaction with the underground cable, the overground cable? How will that affect my sine wave? How will that affect my fixed equipment? What level of energy do I have, and how do I manage that? You're getting into the realms of that purest theoretical engineering design, and I think the lightning protection industry does it by default. But I think it's about time some of that knowledge maybe transfers back into the electrical industry, which we're terrible at. And I mean, we'll discuss it in the lightning protection one, but I've worked so many places where it's like lightning protection. Yes, it's a scam. It's a money making scam. It's too complex.
Well, I mean, Chapter 44 isn't conclusive enough with it. It doesn't illustrate it in any way that is helpful. And a lot of electricians will think of lightning protection as a thing that's outside of the scope of their reach, and it's a Faraday cage. And so anything outside of that cage isn't relevant to them. But obviously, this is a scenario where that actually penetrates through any lightning protection system. And that's just not illustrated effectively in BS 7671. I've seen good illustrations of that. I think I saw it on the Schneider wiki, and I think I've seen it in that Dane handout, that red book, that red
book is
a red manual. Yeah. But a lot of electricians just don't grab that because they just see lightning.
Yeah, that red book, for those that are listening, it's the thing that Dane have got. You can get it for free from their website. It's something like 500 pages of stuff. It's absolutely crammed full of actually really good information. But the lightning protection thing, I mean, obviously surge protection and lightning protection are not the same thing, but there's obviously a lot of overlap, and they are definitely related in a lot of ways.
Yes, there is.
But like you said, the lightning protection in terms of electrical installations, it's just not even in there. It's just this thing that some other people do on the side, and it's all their stuff, and it shouldn't be like that.
It's electricity.
Yeah, but it's all connected together, and you need to know about this stuff.
So, John, what I'll do is, you're absolutely right. I'll put a link in the YouTube thing down below to that Dane Red book, so that people can access it, because it is a encyclopedia of fantastic knowledge. And if anyone wants to do their own research, develop their own content for their learners, most certainly that is the place to go, without a doubt. It's excellent, first class, can't knock it at all. So, John, you're avoiding the ultimate part of the question, though. I notice. What has been your least favourite part?
I don't say any least. I mean, the ones I've been in, I don't think there's any of those I wouldn't say were like dreadful or whatever. I mean, the one which, in terms of listening to of the others, I think one of the most difficult ones was the one about alcoholism, number 41.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that it's just.
Sorry about that. That was a dark one. And do you know what? I applaud Dan for his just honest. I mean, I thought I had a bad time living with it, but I just thought Dan was just open. He was just came out.
I mean, I knew before listening to that he had a problem with alcohol in the past, but I had no idea how bad it was. And then he was describing all this stuff, and it's like, this is unbelievable, isn't it? Really, but all this terrible stuff, and of course now he's got past all that, and good for him. But yeah, it just shows you the kind of damage that certain things can do.
It's hard for me to, because again, I can't relate to that because I was never in that situation. I mean, I've had a beer tonight. That's my but but
I was going to say, you're always drinking every time we do podcasts.
Only for these podcasts do I have to drink. I don't know what that means. Did you hear that,
John? Did you hear that? He has to drink for us.
I have to drink for you, lot.
Hey, some friend you are drinking with us. I don't know. No, yeah, you're right. The alcohol one, I'll be honest with you, it shocked me while we were doing it. My stuff, I didn't think, to certain experiences, could have been a lot worse. But, we just thought, well, let's talk about it now. Let's share it. Dan was in the right frame of mood. Fair play to Dan for being honest and open.
What I'd like to add, though, is, I mean, I've taken part in a lot of technical, and I guess you have as well, John, but I didn't take part in the depression one or the alcoholism. And I kind of, when I take part in things, I don't really watch them afterwards. But the ones that I haven't, I kind of watch, and then I kind of look. And there's a lot of engagement from people on these non-technical ones. There was a lot of engagement, which I think is important.
Well, we had a couple of emails from people. I remember one that we got. It was to the info at E5, and the guy basically said, "I'm writing this in tears."
Yeah,
and it was our stories, our messages. hit home with him. I mean, one guy wrote to me about, I think it was a bullying one, and it reminded him of his father. My dad reminded him of his father, and it was nice for him to know that he hadn't been. I mean, I look at everything now through almost rose-tinted glasses, regards to what's happened to me, but to other people, I'm in previous workplaces. I've told people my background, and they've been stood in front of me mortified at what I was telling them. But at the time, it was, for me, it was just, it wasn't anything at all. It was just, oh well, it is what it is, and yeah, I don't know.
But I mean, those couple of podcasts have just let me realise that not everyone listening to our podcast is the typical person who sits in a regs book, who sits in a text. That other people are listening who also want to engage, but might not engage technical, but will engage with things that we open up with. And I think it's important that we do now and then, produce content out there for them.
Yeah, I mean, these issues exist. So
exactly.
Yeah, they need to be mentioned at least some of the time. So
yeah. Okay, so you've both failed that test. I was hoping one of you would say, John Paul, your RCD one, the one you did by yourself, that was world class. Although no doubt John's going to go, oh, that one, yeah, I use that to fall asleep to because it's so boring. It's just rubbish.
Oh, I know. I skipped past that one. You did one on external influences. I've seen that one.
Thanks for that, bud. Right, make sure.
No. I listened to it back then.
Down. Skip Dave's videos.
I listened to it then, but no, just flicking. I noticed that you did your own one on external influences, but I didn't see that one because
it was a full piece. It was how I think about external influence, because I kept getting asked by people, how does your brain work? Blah blah blah, on this, that, and the other.
How did you find doing a podcast on your own?
Weird.
Because that's what I started mine on my own. I was like,
I'll be honest with you. I thought that, so the ones that I did, I had no problem doing them because I sat and I took a deep breath and went, this is my engineering judgment on how I approach this, and I'll pretend I'm talking to a room of people as in a lecture, and that's how I got through it. But doing it alone, to be honest with you, it's quite lonely. I prefer to bounce off and have a bit of a giggle and a bit of fun and just explore and expand the mind. So I don't really like doing them by myself anymore. I don't really want to. I'm hoping by the time, if we ever get to an episode 100, that there'll be a string of 10 where I'm not even in these, and it'll just be everybody else doing them, or John going, here's me and the postman, and Mr. Postman, do you know anything about electrics? No? Okay, well, thanks for that. This is the next podcast. See you later. Bye-bye. Do you know what I mean? It's, I'd like it to grow, as in grow and more people from the industry. And I'm hoping once we've been through a number of the manufacturers, we can then people will start naturally gravitating, saying, well, I've got something I want to say, actually. I've got a viewpoint I want to contribute, and it will go to, because this is a pool of debate, thought pieces is CPD, dare I use that term,
Yeah, I mean that is the main thing that is that this podcast has. It's the unique part of this podcast, really. It's not just jibber jabber. This podcast we're doing right now is probably the closest thing we've done to jibber jabber.
Yeah, although we have referenced IEC.
We've referenced a few standards.
62350 2006, which is a great read.
There may be some trace CPD in this jibber jabber for you, but no. But it doesn't mean we have to keep it technical all the time. But
okay, so
keep on those rails.
Last question for both of you, because you've both broken my heart. Bare minimum. What's the bare minimum? No, in fact, I've got two more questions for you. Bare minimum. What's the bare minimum for you guys? What does that mean to you? John, you can start off. Well, when on Facebook groups, on user groups, when people say, oh, you should only do the bare minimum, anything else you're wasting money, you're wasting time. The bare minimum, do you think that's part of the race to the bottom?
Dude, my hashtag is level up for crying out loud.
Yeah.
That's ended that for him. John,
Jesus,
Yeah, this sort of bare minimum, and it really fits in with like, oh, here's the regulations. Does it just about comply with it? Oh, if it does, that's fine. Let's just carry on then, which is not really the right thing at all, because what's there, if you're only just about making the minimum standard required, then why are you doing that? What's the point? Because You're literally just scraping up to the standard there, which, let's face it, what's in the BS7671 is a pretty low standard quite a lot of the time anyway.
I agree.
So if you're aiming to sort of just about meet that really quite low bar, then basically what you're doing is just a load of rubbish. So, yeah, when people say, oh, we've done enough and we've done the minimum, well, no, not good enough, not even close. And it doesn't take a huge amount of effort to make it a lot better than the bare minimum. Yeah, it might cost slightly more money or might take slightly longer, but in most cases, it's not a huge amount of extra money and it's not a huge amount of extra time. It's just being bothered to actually think, well, yeah, we could do it the cheap and nasty and just about make it way, or by spending an extra 5 minutes on it, then it's going to be considerably better. It's going to last a lot longer, and yeah, you might have to charge some slightly more money for it, but in the end, they're going to get a much better product or service out the end of it.
Also, as well, a lot of these contractors, they label up their installations and they put their company names on it. Yeah. And do you know what I mean? And people will remember the bad jobs. The trouble is, a lot of companies get branded bad for individuals who just might not realise their own levels of competence. And John, you're absolutely right, because the amount of times when I was on the tools still, the amount of sites I'd go on to and you'd hear, it'd be a common term used on sites where somebody would go, yeah, that'd be all right. Yeah, that'd be all right. That'll do. Yeah, we'll be all right. Yeah, we'll get away with that. That was such a common term used on a lot of commercial industrial sites. It was mind-blowing. You just think, oh, you're just on a road to failure here because you're going to do something, it's going to fail and it's going to cost you a lot more to redo right or fix than doing it properly.
It's important to understand as well, the bare minimum is across the whole demographic of the industry. We can say, contractors applying the bare minimum, but the regulations is written to a standard which is the bare minimum. The training is delivered to a standard which is the bare minimum. The CPS authorized people to the industry on what is considered to be the bare minimum. It's always the minimum required to achieve expectation, and expectation moves often downwards.
I'm going to finish this with my last question and then I'll wind this up.
All right.
I've asked this before of guests and I've never asked it of you guys. If you had 3 wishes for this industry or personally, what would those 3 wishes be? And I'm going to turn to Lenin Jar. Okay. 3 wishes for this industry, okay?
All right. I kind of teased onto this on a previous podcast when you asked a guy and I kind of gave an answer. Which was to basically just freeze time for some of the things I'm trying to do to actually be implemented. But ignoring that, 3 wishes for a complete restructuring of the qualification system from the beginning that's developed and built by manufacturers, at least 50% of contribution being from lead manufacturers on a regular basis. So every time the qualification structure framework is reassessed and regraded and rewritten and redeveloped, instead of taking the old qualifications and rebuilding the old shit on new numbers, manufacturers will go, well, no, we've got this new technology now, put that into the framework, put that into the colleges. So bring the manufacturers into that framework from the beginning upwards. Secondly, second wish, I would bring license to practice in. Bring license to practice in a model that I've described in numerous podcasts where the license to practice funds CPD and the CPD monitors the electricians on the varying different parts of their journey. And that is regularly monitored and it's sanctioned. And it's sanctioned in real time, along with the ICRs, and every single EICR, etc., is registered to one number and is traceable immediately. Third, I don't know. If those 2 happen, I'll be happy. Third, the third, whatever is needed to happen for electricians, as I say, to be great again. So whether that be, the powers that be just get completely replaced, shut down, rebranded, restructured, I do not know. But something has to give electricians a chance to actually be, like John just said, no longer doing the bare minimum, to actually be culpable to do a good job. Yeah. So I don't know what that is, but something.
So you're adopting Donald Trump's "Make America Great Again, Make Electricians Great Again."
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
Best thing Trump's done.
Yeah, no, I agree. Mr. JW, sir.
Yeah, well, three things after those things is fairly difficult, but
I mean, say it, isn't it?
Isn't it? But yeah, I mean, there are certain things.
One thing I just say, trademark Sparky Ninja and E5, although everyone will probably copy half of it.
Yeah.
One thing I think is to get rid of this fully qualified kind of thing, which some people like to mention. It's like, oh, we went to college for 3 years, or however long it is, or we went on some course, and now we're fully qualified, and as if that's sort of the end of it. When, of course, it's not the end of it at all, because there's always more and more stuff to cover. So this idea that you go and do something for a while, and then that's it, and then you can spend the next 50 years doing what you like, it's not the case at all, is it? So get rid of this idea that it's all a one-time thing, and actually realise that actually it's just continuous learning forever. Nobody is actually fully qualified, if you want to put it that way, because whatever they know, there's always a load more stuff that they need to pick up on for later. So I think get rid of that term, because it's pretty meaningless, isn't it, really?
No, it's good point. Okay, first one. That's the next one.
The next one, getting rid of another thing. It's not really getting rid of it as such, but this idea that there's these Part P courses that people can go on, which is a load of nonsense. It's a bit of the wording regulation. So, and again, it's one of these terms which you see all the time. Oh, Part P qualified, and they can sign off this for whatever and all the rest of it. But it's like, well, it's not. It's a load of nonsense. Part P is it's a single sentence in the building regulations. So, if you're Part P qualified, as certain training providers like to put out there.
Yeah, that's the marketing. The marketing of the electrical industry should have a serious words of itself. It's crap in a lot of places. Sorry, third one.
So, third one, quite difficult actually to think about another one. I think we've already covered some of it. I was going to do anyhow.
I would say if we can, those two that John's got, if we can stop using terms fully qualified, get rid of Part P, that's going to make such a huge change.
Yeah,
and what else could you want?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Part P, it's part of the building regulations. We don't necessarily get rid of it because there's nothing actually wrong with it, but it's getting rid of all of this sort of blatant misdescription of it and the silly training courses that go along with it and all of that other junk, which it's all meaningless stuff, basically.
Yeah. Well, we recorded a podcast, myself and Ryan, with Schneider the other day about what makes qualified electrician. And I think you guys will be pretty proud of it because we absolutely go to town. And for me, it's about suitability of the task. Suitability and not just qualification, the skills, the knowledge and the ability to apply yourself to the damn task you've been given. That's it.
Because there's a lot of people that get worked up over
self-respect and pride.
Yeah, they get sort of all busted up over the fact that, oh, you haven't got this NVQ or whatever, or you haven't got this bit of paper, or you haven't got this lump of plastic or whatever else. And it's like as if getting that particular one thing is some kind of the solution to everything, but of course it's not.
Sadly, as an industry, we try and market our way out of press and PR because they're governed by coin and revenue. Rue the industry.
It's exactly the same thing as what I've just had lately with these webinars. Because people want them to be CPD accredited. Not that they want to do the webinars. They've done the webinars, but they know that their employers would like the certificates to be accredited by
their employers are bell ends. That's what they are.
And,
sorry, but they are.
It's like great, but that these were free webinars, and I wanted to do free webinars as much as I can, but you want them accredited. So now I've got to try to raise some money. So now I'm having to charge for courses to try to raise some money to pay for webinars. And the more webinars I want to deliver, the accreditors want me to pay more. Current quote is £3,500
because it doesn't add to the quality of your webinars.
No, it's just to put that badge on. Dave,
my view is you shouldn't bloody do it, and you should just give them a certificate that says you attended. Piss off.
Yeah, well, I've sent certificates to the guys who've done a course already. They're very happy with those, but I want to try. But right now, yeah, they just want more money.
By the way, I didn't get a certificate for the one that I co-hosted. I don't know if you get a co-host.
No, the webinars, the free ones, I'm currently programming something because over 2,500 people have attended, Paul. I'm not going to type out a PDF and send a manual email for 2,500 people.
No.
So I'm writing some code to generate the PDF and then send the email. When I say I'm writing some code, my brother is.
I'm not competent to do any of that stuff, and that's the stuff that in 10 years' time I want to be far more literate and competent at my IT skills. And I think guys like you are just going to embarrass me into doing it, which is okay in my world.
So yeah, but the point is, we'll just help you along the way.
Yeah, well, John, your video that we did, our conversation couch that we did after Alex, the quality of how you edited that just put what I would normally edit to shame. So I need to get darn better at editing. Although I think we probably need an offline chat about how you do it and the software you use and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of things, editing is not desperately difficult. It's just one of those things that once you've been doing it for years, it becomes much easier.
And the thing is, it's such because you now have streamers and YouTubers, and there's so many softwares out there. And if you want to try to find a good solution, you'll just smother with all this other nonsense and software and stuff that's all designed for that other industry. Where really, you know, a simple little program will do what you want it to do. You just got to do the research and trial it out. You know, I've tested so many bits of software or codecs or whatever. Just
I try and get used to one, and then if it works for me, I mean, I'm using Movavi at the moment. That seems to work, although I've just upgraded it. So we'll soon see if I've I may have screwed myself, but we'll soon see anyway. Right, chaps.
Cool. All right, guys.
That's enough. Gents, no more final thoughts. We've overrun. My last thought is thank you very much for coming on this journey. I have enjoyed every minute of every podcast I've done. And if it all ended tomorrow, I'd be super proud of everything we've done and said. Here's to another 50 episodes if we can make it, or we may just decide to stop one day, who knows, and then take a break, because I have actually thought that it might be worthwhile taking a break. Maybe once we get to a year for 6 months, and then build another pocket of
it's a case, as I said right at the beginning, doing these when there's a discussion to have, instead of saying let's do one a week and then having nothing to talk about. You know, if there's always things to talk about, then we've got mates to talk about it with. And if there's nothing to talk about, we'll catch up anyway, but not record it if it's not valuable for anyone else. You know,
very true.
So, and we've said the industry is always moving, so we'll always have something to talk about, just maybe not as
well. We know we've got loads to talk about. We've just got to learn it and figure it out.
Got to learn it first.
Right, gents, as always, love you loads, respect your loads. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for listening, everyone. You know we're on social media. Email us if you want, info@e5group.org.uk. And until the next one, take care of yourself and each other. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.